All right, we're back on the Young Turks. We are going to do a series on the Koch brothers this week. We're going to tell you who they are, what they're up to in different areas. For example, today we're going to do Social Security. Tomorrow we're going to do education. Don't miss that. And on Wednesday, Koch brothers on cancer. That's devastating. Also, don't miss that one either. And so first, let's start telling you who the Koch brothers are. Well, they run Koch Industries, and their father originally made the family money by working with Stalin. And of course, they claim to be very anti-communist. Maybe they are because they feel guilty about all the money they took from Stalin. So how much money do they have? Well, the two Koch brothers that we are mainly talking about here, David and Charles, have a combined worth of about $50 billion. Now, what do they do with that money? Well, they try to make more money by buying politicians and by buying our entire political system. So before, they would spend a good amount of money. For example, as you can tell, in 2004, they spent $857,000 on lobbying. That's a lot of money. But in 2008, after President Obama is running for office and then gets elected eventually, of course, they crank it all the way up to $20 million. In 2010, they spent even more on the elections. And in 2012, they're saying they might spend hundreds of millions of dollars on the elections to make sure their guys win so they can get more tax cuts, so they can do more deregulation, so they could put more toxins in the air and just get a little richer, because $50 billion just doesn't do it. You got to get to $51 or $52 billion because there is no end to greed. So one of the things that they are pushing forward is, hey, you know what? Why don't we cut and eventually maybe even kill Social Security for the middle class, because that'll leave more money for us. These guys are unbelievable. So how much have they spent on that effort? $28.4 million. And what has it produced? 297 commentaries, 56 studies, and 6 books, all arguing against Social Security. So when you see those so-called experts on television telling you, oh my God, we got to raise the Social Security age and we got to cut the benefits, etc., most of them are funded by the Koch brothers to advance their agenda. In fact, there is a new movie called Koch Brothers Exposed. I want to show you a clip here because it gives you a perfect sense of how they do it. Let's watch.
What the Koch brothers want to do is destroy Social Security, because Social Security is a federal government program that has been enormously successful. The Koch brothers fund organizations, and you have economists and political scientists working there, and they are very, very good in getting on television.
Raising the retirement age.
I would increase the retirement age.
You will probably have to increase the retirement age.
We're probably going to have to raise the retirement age.
And people will not know they represent an organization which is heavily funded by corporate interests.
I love that because it actually shows you the TV clips. And guys, you think, oh, well, these guys must be telling me their expert opinion. No, they're telling you the opinion the Koch brothers paid them to tell you. All right, now the movie that you can see that in is Koch Brothers Exposed. The producer and director of that movie, Robert Greenwald, joins us now. He's, of course, also the president of Brave New Foundation. Robert, great to see you here on the Young Turks.
Thank you. Good to be with you again.
Absolutely. So talk to me about what they're doing with Social Security. Why are they targeting it? What's wrong with that?
Well, what's wrong with them? We don't have enough time for that. But
that's why it's a 3-part series.
Good, thank you. Do you have a month? But on Social Security, what we discovered, and we've been researching this for over a year, is that this is the best example I've ever seen of the echo chamber. They fund, as you said, almost 300 papers from think tanks. Then literally the words from those think tanks are put in the mouths of groups they fund, like Americans for Prosperity. Then you hear it in the mouths of the pundits, and then worst of all, the elected officials who they also pay for. Ryan and others are saying the exact words that come from the think tanks. So you can see it all across the spectrum, and they fund every step.
It's amazing how they have bought the entire system. But, you know, I think that the think tank part of it is really interesting, because I think a lot of people have this misconception, oh, well, these are really smart people. They're at a think tank. They must be thinking all day long. But in reality, the Koch brothers funded Cato Institute, Heritage Foundation. Tell me what else they funded and how brilliant a strategy that was.
Well, there's an article in, Jane Mayer wrote the article about the Koch brothers that started a lot of this. And in the article, she quotes David Koch, and he had, to me, the clearest, strongest statement. He said, politicians are like actors. They read from a script, and what I, David Koch, want to do is write that script. Now, how smart is that, right? So they don't wait till the last minute and then fund some horrible 30-second ads that nobody will ever remember. They fund all across the spectrum because that's the way you write the script. That's the way you create a social movement, which they're committed to doing, and that's the way you create change, not stupid little ads that nobody remembers.
You know, as a general concept, not necessarily connected to the Koch brothers, David Frum was at the American Enterprise Institute, another conservative think tank, and the minute he stepped out of the bounds of what they wanted him to say, he got fired immediately. And he's written about that. These think tanks aren't for independent thinkers. They're for you do as we tell you and write that damn paper for our agenda or you're fired. That's the whole point. And so now the question, though, in this particular case is, why? Why do they want to target Social Security? What benefit is it to them to make sure that all these people suffer by having to work harder and get less benefits, et cetera?
Well, they have two basic goals. One is more money, and the other is ideological. And ideologically, they do not believe any government program, particularly successful government programs, should ever be allowed to continue. That undermines either their belief system or their greed, depending on how you look at it. And therefore, if you look at what they're doing with Social Security, here's an incredible program run by the government, literally saving people's lives, making an enormous difference to people you know and I know and everyone knows, and they want to undercut that program because it can't be a better example of how government works and how people coming together can really serve the common good.
You know, the Republicans are always talking about, oh, government doesn't work. Yeah, under Republicans, government doesn't work. Okay, but FDR created Social Security. It worked great. We don't have starving senior citizens in the streets anymore. That's part of why they hate it. But I think the other part is that's why they always want to include Social Security in the deficit discussions, even though it doesn't belong in there. It's just an insurance program we've paid for our whole lives.
Yep.
And I think it's because, well, if you include it in the larger deficit, well, then I can take the $2.6 trillion surplus that Social Security has and give it in the form of tax cuts, more wars, more deregulation, et cetera. What do you think?
I think that's exactly right. And I think, again, it's very, look, we disagree with them, but they're really smart about how they approach these things. And the other thing that we see with the think tanks, they're in it for the long haul. They don't have attention deficit disorder like many of our friends and colleagues do. One idea one day, another idea the next day. They stay with it, and they stay with it, and they hammer at this ridiculous idea that it's bankrupt and that you should retire later in life. And suddenly you see it on every other television show and all these pundits.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know what? We're going to stay with it and stay with it. Tomorrow, we're going to come back and talk about the Koch brothers and education. I want to show you a piece of that.
The Koch brothers, of course, have a national libertarian agenda, and they want to destroy, really, the model of equal schools, equal opportunity for every child.
All right, so we'll talk to Robert again about that tomorrow, and wait till you get a load of what they're doing on cancer. Oy.